This is the Roller Coaster Podcast, and I'm your host, Lucy Q. Life is a wild ride. It has twists and turns. It's scary, exciting, and downright fun. So throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride.
Episode 200 of the roller coaster will soon be here, and this is your chance to be part of the fun. I'm going to be recording this episode with coaches and listeners just like you. If you want to be part of the fun, head over to nectargrowth.com. Sign up for free and RSVP for the November 18th event. All of the details will be under the events tab. I can't wait to see you there. What are you waiting for? Come join us. You know you're worth it. Almost 5 years ago now, I realized that the stories I was telling myself, the beliefs that I had, they weren't true. It was the beginning of my journey to discover new stories, new beliefs, and who I could be. And since then, I've come to realize the power of choice. Joining me today is Sharon Hughes, who is a confidence coach and self-worth expert for women and author of The Girl in the Garage. And she's here to help make sense of the stuff that keeps us awake at night. Hi, Sharon.
Hey, Lucy. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you. This is great. So tell me, what prompted you to write The Girl in the Garage and what's it about?
You know, that's a big question. I think all my life, I had always wanted to be a writer. I never thought that I would write this type of book. It was a really, it was a long road. It was a long road of overcoming trauma, overcoming obstacles, and figuring out who I am, what I believe about myself. And what happened was when I got to the point of just so much healing and transformation, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that this was my purpose and calling in life. And it was to write this book so that other women could break free from, not just if they've had a traumatic experience, but break free from those stories that float around in their head over and over again, telling them that they're not enough and that they should be, ashamed of the things that they've done or doubting who they are and what's possible for them. And I went to this speakers conference of all things, and I had something safe to share at this event. And when I got there, I started really hearing God's voice telling me, to change what I was going to share. And I was in the bathroom of this beautiful hotel room I was staying in, and I was negotiating with God, pacing the floor in the bathroom and reaching out to friends of mine and saying, I think that I'm supposed to share my story. And I couldn't reach any of my 3 closest friends. One of them texted me back and said, "Oh, I'm at dinner. Just do it. You'll be fine." And another person said, "Oh, we're praying for you. It'll be great." And I just thought, you guys don't even really know all of my story, and you're telling me to go for it. So I decided to go for it. And when I walked off the stage, I said, that's it. That's the book. The book is The Girl in the Garage. And that was that.
Wow. So, in your book, you share your story, your journey of what you went through. Do you want to touch a little bit on that, just so that the listeners can get a better understanding of, where this conversation is starting from?
Yeah. So The Girl in the Garage is really the culmination of many, many years of other things that happened that led up to this. So there was a lot of years of different types of abuse from different people in my life. And this belief of being less than, not being good enough, being there for the taking was starting to take place in my life. But what happened was when I was 16, I went to a Halloween party and I was handed a cup. Now, I wasn't handed a cup by a guy. It was actually, I was there with an older guy, which is a bad idea to begin with, but the drink was handed to me by his sister. And this guy, I didn't know him very well. I kind of liked him. I don't think he was really that interested in me. He just brought me to this Halloween party. And I took a couple of drinks out of the cup and I thought, I'll go to the ladies' room and I'll look at my costume and what have you. And I remember when I went in the bathroom just thinking, I'm so tired. I just need to lay down for a minute. And I laid down on the bathroom floor. I woke up 7 hours later in a garage at a different location, and I was being sexually assaulted by the date. I didn't get home until somewheres around 4 o'clock in the morning. And what happened from that point on is what really sealed the deal. The things that had happened to me before were bad enough, but coming to the door, the porch light is off, the door is locked, and I have to wake somebody up to let me in. And my mother comes to the door and she just looks at me. She doesn't ask me what happened, where I've been. I mean, who is not up waiting for their 16-year-old daughter to come home at 4 in the morning? I don't know. I have kids and I pace the floor when they're 10 minutes late. But there was no medical attention. There was just nothing. And it wasn't spoken of after that. And that was when the messaging was really sealed inside my mind, my heart, my soul, was that I didn't matter. I was there for the taking and nobody really cared.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's certainly going to create some scars that are going to take some time to heal.
Yeah.
When it finally sort of bubbled up for you and you started to deal with it, was it one thing that was the catalyst for you healing your past trauma, or was it more of a process that you came to discover that, hey, wait, I have to go back and deal with this?
No, it was quite a process. There was just so many years of being the I'm fine girl, always trying to be the Susie Sunshine. That was a way of coping. And I think because there was so much what I would call like groundwork laid in my earlier years of trauma and having nowhere safe to go with it, this was just another thing. So I was able to hold it together for a really long time and keep moving forward. But when I really came undone was when I decided to walk away from a 20-year marriage. And the lid blew off, really, because everything that had been shoved down and not dealt with was now coming up. And I completely came undone. I had been in some counseling on and off here and there over years. Nobody had ever told me, what are you believing about yourself? And I guess it's probably 5 years ago now, 5 or 6 years ago. One morning I woke up and I was laying in bed and I was praying and I was just saying, like, God, I am not going to make it. Not going to make it through this. Nobody knows all the heartbreak. They don't know how low I am. And I really heard God say to me, what are you believing about yourself? And I just thought, are you serious? Because you know. And I heard him say, is it true? That was the catalyst for change. Nobody had ever asked me in my entire life, what do you believe about yourself and is it true? And I knew that had to be in the book. So that was before I went to the speakers conference. I think it was 2018 in the fall that I went to the speakers conference. And I knew that is pivotal. So I was in corporate training in 2018, 2019, a little bit in, 2018, 2019. And I thought, I'm going to use this principle in corporate training. I was working for a company that gave me free creative reign to just do anything I wanted. And so many of the department managers had said they needed personal development. They needed to know how to be better communicators. And I thought, okay, well, let's start with, what do you believe about yourself? And it was just shocking to me that I would say to people at the beginning of the training, what is it that you're believing? What's the thing? You've been told by somebody you're not good enough. Maybe it was the coach. You won't make the team. I said, think of that thing and hold it in your mind. And I would go through the entire training. And at the end, I would say, okay, that thing I told you to get in your mind, what if you weren't that? And people would cry. Some people would shout out that they would be free. It just blew my mind. I said, this is powerful. It's powerful here in the corporate world at the time, but it was so powerful on the spiritual level as well. And I knew I was really on to something. And that became really the cornerstone of the book is you're probably not who you think you are.
And that's the hard thing to wrap your head around. For
Yeah.
me, I went through a similar thing. I knew I was unhappy and I was trying to make all these changes in my outer world, obviously. And, it's the inner world that you have to fix. It's not the outer world. And it had thrown my marriage into chaos. Fortunately for me, we were able to reconcile and get everything on track. And, we're stronger now than ever. But it was through all of that that I did hit such a point of unhappiness where I wanted to tap out. I wanted it done. And at the time, I always considered myself spiritual, but not in the sense that I am now, but not religious. Like I didn't attend church or anything. But in these moments of desperation, I called out to the universe and I'm like, just please give me that one thing that I need to do to start to fix this.
Mhm.
And it was through that process that I was able to go on this journey of self-discovery and start to, ask myself those questions. And, I look back and I think how many people haven't asked themselves what they believe about themselves and is it true?
Mhm. Yeah.
And, that's part of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing is because I remember how awful it felt in that moment of desperation and not wanting anyone else to go through that.
Mhm.
Is you're not alone.
Yeah.
There are people out there that feel the way that you do. Let's get the conversation going. And that's what you're doing because you work with women now.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
how is it that you help women with their confidence and their self-worth?
Well, we do a lot of work around, what is that thing? Because most people have been dragging something around for decades. And it's not until they're older that they start to realize it. And they look back and they go, look at all these years of suffering. And I tell people that are sitting on the fence, I suffered for 4 decades. I don't want somebody else to. That's a long time to suffer. So if the answer is right there, will you take it? And if they say yes, great. But then there's the people that they don't know, because here's the truth is that when you learned these certain patterns of behavior and patterns of belief since childhood, you don't know how to be anything else. It's work. I call it the bloody street fight. It's that fight to let go of the old patterns, the old ways, the old beliefs, and learn how to think differently. So that's the work that I do with women is like, let's break up with these lies. Let's learn how to think for yourself rather than against yourself. Because everybody knows what it's like to lay in bed at night and go into the self shame. Why did I say that? Why did I do that? Well, why didn't I do this? And that video replays over and over in your head. It's learning how to turn it off and how to think differently. So it's neuroplasticity. It's those new neural pathways that we create. It's exciting work. It's amazing when somebody gets the breakthrough, but it's super frustrating when somebody just can't let themselves. Sometimes people aren't ready. So I can say, like, to that point, 10 years ago, let's see, I'm 55 now. 10 years ago was right about where I started venturing into this whole arena of personal development, growth,
I
like
think
all
I
that
was I
stuff.
was I was 44 too.
It's interesting. And I have heard that, I don't know if this is true. In fact, I should find out. I have heard that there are certain time markers in your brain where certain things click in. and I've heard that that's why they call it a midlife crisis, is because
Well,
all of a sudden it's like, oh,
it makes sense. And
yeah.
for me, if I think about it, it was really because my oldest was getting ready to go to university. And it wasn't that I was afraid of like empty nest syndrome or anything like that. But that's when I started thinking, well, what about me? Like,
Yeah.
what's my life now? I've spent the last 19 years
Hmm.
running a house and two kids and supporting my husband and his career and, working whatever jobs I had. And it was in those first sort of moments that you're like, hey, wait a second, who am I? And I think the crisis
Yeah.
occurred because it scared the living shit out of me because I was 44 and I'd never asked that question. I
Yeah.
think that I think I'm just realizing that now is that that's where it all started, is just pure fear of, I don't know who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that all the time. I think I would say that that's like so normal for women, but it's the same thing for guys. We're all told like you grow up, you go to college, you get married, you have a family, you do your career and all this stuff. And we get caught up in that. I mean, here you're in Canada, I'm in the States. They call it the American dream, but you get in there and then all of a sudden you're just like, what am I doing? You know, I don't know if this is what I want. I don't know who I am. I just kind of followed the program.
I call it the dreaded list. The dreaded
Yeah.
list that they wrote, and I'm still trying to figure out who they are
Yeah.
because we need to get them to write a new list. Or not even a
Yeah.
list. It's just like just one thing. You be you, you
Or
know?
yeah, why isn't this like a college course, or maybe even it should be like grade school
It should
of
it should. And I mean,
yeah.
I know our educational systems are quite different. Um, but I firmly believe that our Canadian educational system has been broken for years. And I'm going to guess that the US system is also based on, you're basically training children to follow rules and to punch clocks.
Yep,
That's
pretty
how I
much.
see, which really the educational system was created back when, when you had the Industrial Revolution, and, when parents went to work, they need somewhere to stick kids. So they created an education system that would then create more workers.
Yeah.
That's how I see our system. It's not, they're not teaching us who we are and who we can become.
Hmm.
Even in our
Yeah.
educational system, you're checking boxes. Whether you're good at science or not in high school, you have to have your 3 science credits,
Right.
but you only need 1 art.
Right. Yeah, it's the complete opposite because all the art teachers, whether it's drama, music, or it's, like painting or journaling, writing, all those teachers are the ones that are actually helping us unlock those dreams. And even, I believe every person is created with certain skill sets. And how many of them do not even realize what they're good at until they've started college, they've changed majors 3 times, they've gotten frustrated, they took a job that they hate, and then they're ready to retire and they go, I think I'll go back and finish the piano lessons I never finished when I was younger. And they find out they're really good at this. And it's probably what they were meant to do all along. It, it's just
Yeah.
so backwards.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's the thing, is that nowhere along the line are we being taught to learn about ourselves, to ask
Hmm.
those, even, going back to, what do you believe about yourself? You know,
Hmm.
nowhere are those topics
Yeah.
mainstream.
Yeah. Yeah. In my book, I talk about what labels do you have and letting go of the labels and then writing your own label. Like, who do you want to be? Some
And
people don't even know. They're like, for me, I was like, I don't know. Somebody
that
told me, oh, go ahead.
that was the message when I called down to the universe. That's what the message I got back was, if you don't want to be this person, who do you want to be?
Yeah.
And it was basically, what are 5 things about that person?
That's
And
good.
those 5 things became the basis of my journaling practice
Mm,
that I have
Yeah.
written and I've developed over the course of, the past almost 5 years now. Um, and they have been the reason why I've been able to create the transformation that I have, is because it's just recognizing who is that person that I want to be.
Yeah.
How does she think? How does she feel? What does she do with her time? All of those things. It's those core skills that we should be taught
Hmm.
in grade 1. Because if you learn that about yourself in elementary school, then when you get to the high school point of having to decide what you're going to do, college or university, it's probably going to be pretty obvious. You're not going to have kids switching majors and changing this and going back to school. You're going to have people that are graduating from high school with purpose.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, you were describing that. It just kind of gave me the goosebumps. It's that feeling of going, each person is like a blank slate. Who do you want to be? What is your purpose? Like if you get really quiet with yourself and you block out all the noise, what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? Like all of that, it is your superpower of choice. People don't realize, because of the conditioning that you were referencing, that they have the power to choose. You can choose to do good or bad, like we're seeing a lot of crazy in our world. And people don't understand like that whole choosing and the free will. If you're going to want free will to choose where you live and the sandwich that you're going to eat, which is, kind of silly in the scope of the world, have to understand that you also get the power to choose literally what you're going to do with your life and how you're going to treat other people and the big decisions that you're going to make. So people that are mad, and Lucy, I'm faith-based, people that are mad at God, it's like God gave free will. He gave it like all of it. So when they're mad at God because something horrible happens, it's like, well, you have to understand that every decision, whether it's good or bad, has a consequence. It's a good or a bad consequence. So if we want the power to choose, oh, are we going to wear red shoes today? And am I going to eat a steak later? You've got to accept that you've got control over what choices you're making in every single area. And it's not God's fault when people make bad choices. So like the horrible things we see going on in the world, that people that are quote leaders making bad decisions, that's on them. It has that ripple effect and it's affecting us. That's why we have to be super proactive with our choices and say, okay, they're not running the country right, or whatever it is, whether it's the kids' classroom or it's the country. We've got to use that power of choice and use it respectfully and honorably, because we can change the world. We
Oh, for
really
sure.
can.
For
Yeah.
sure. And, you can change the world in the smallest of ways. And you were talking about the ripple effect.
Yeah.
And this morning I had to run out and do some things. And yesterday was a bad day. It was an emotional day, and I was struggling with a few things. And the weight of the world was bearing down on me, and it was affecting, to be quite honest, a lot of the stuff that's going on in the world makes me really bitchy.
Yeah.
And I find it really hard to go out and engage in public because of all of these things that are weighing down on us. It makes
Mm-hmm.
me cranky. And then of course I get into the beating myself up because, I'm not perfect and all of this good stuff. So when I was driving around this morning, I'm like, okay, I'm going to grab a couple of teas through the drive-through before I head home. And a thing popped in my head, and it was like, you know what? You get to choose how you're going to let the stuff affect you. And the only thing that you can control right now is how nice you are to other people.
Mm. Yeah.
And I set the intention of going through the drive-through and just being the nicest person I possibly could to the person serving me, just so that I can make their day that little bit better.
That's so beautiful.
And it's realizing those little things in every moment of our lives that you do have the power
You
I don't
do.
know. I don't know if that person was having a crappy day before I got there. I don't know if it made their day better. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was my choice
Yeah.
to try and be positive in the moment.
Yeah.
And hopefully it made a difference.
I'm sure it did. There's no doubt. I mean, I hear countless stories of people that say they can't take it anymore and literally prayed, I'm going to take my life. But God, if you will just put one person in my life that will be nice to me or just give me a sign, I won't. And then somebody came by and like held the door as they came through and said, oh, hi, good morning, or something. And that was all it took for them to go, okay, there's hope. Like we can all choose to be nice. And one of the lessons that I learned was doing corporate training, and I was talking about the stories that we get in our head. And I was saying, what to the group, what's the thing that drives you the craziest? And somebody goes, I get so mad when I'm driving and I get cut off. And I said, well, what is it that you think about that person? It's like, oh, they're a jerk. They're not paying attention. It's this, that, and the other. And I said, well, what if they just got a phone call that their wife is in labor and they're trying to get to the hospital? How does that flip it? Or what if they just got the call that somebody they love is dying of cancer and they've got to get there to say goodbye? Or what if that person is just afraid that they can't pay their house payment and they're so deep in thought that they just didn't even see you? Like, why do we always have to go to the negative and think that person did that? You know, it's some kind of personal attack and it's just this, this, and this. We can reframe things and give people the benefit of the doubt. We can give them grace and go, oh my gosh, they didn't see me. God keep them safe. You know, bless them. It doesn't take anything, it doesn't cost anything to just go, okay, bless them. It doesn't mean you got to be their best friend. But this is how we can change the world.
But our brains do default to the negative. It's so easy. It's
Mhm.
so easy to believe, you know, the worst situation. It's so easy to believe those negative and limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves. It's easy to stay in the negative. It's hard to switch to the positive, to the possibilities, to, instead of saying, I can't do that. Well, what if? That's the hard part. I don't know why. I don't know why our brains do that to us. You'd think that we would be pre-programmed to be positive and see all the good, but we don't. And I don't know if that's just a reflection of all of the weight that we're carrying, or it's just our natural default.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think it's actually a combination of things because even when you watch TV, it's like even comedy is really negative. It's always poking at people. How often have you watched a movie that was just really, really uplifting? It's that is such a subtle thing that comes in. But for people that watch TV every single day and they're watching sitcoms and they're negative, they're talking about people, there's, gossip, just different things. It's like that's one way these nuances of human behavior that seems to be acceptable and the way to think and process slips in. Because a lot of people work and they have TV on in the background. They're not really watching it. But on the subconscious level, your brain is still absorbing the language that it's hearing. So that's why it's so important to guard our minds, guard the inputs. Like, what do you allow to come into your mind on a daily basis? What are you focusing on and what are you listening to? And like when you strain something, like when you have a strainer and you're cooking and you're straining the water out of noodles, we'll say, think of it like that. What is the strainer that you can put over your mind to make sure that what comes in is what you want in and you're releasing what you don't want to keep? And I think that's like you talked about journaling and the prompts that you used. Journaling can be that strainer of sitting down every single day, because this is the work to change how you think. It's got to be a daily practice. What did I believe today? And go, oh, this happened and that happened. Is it really true? And the more you work on this process, you get super fine tuned and you'll find out that you're like, oh, I was watching this show and you know what? I don't really like the values that they're teaching. Like one of my sons said to me the other day, he goes, Mom, I'm not going to watch horror movies anymore. He's 23. Like, those college age kids are always watching horror movies. I can't stand horror movies. And he goes, I just don't feel good when I watch them. And I'm like, good. See, you're paying attention to what your mind wants and doesn't want. So good for you. You're not going to watch horror movies. I mean, it seems silly, but that's how we need to be.
And it's true, because right now I actually have been doing this for a few years now. I actually don't watch the news. Very rarely do I watch the news. And I try not to read much, online or newspapers or anything like that, because it is so full of negative bias information. And you really do have to shield yourself from it, because if you spend too much time in it, it brings you down. It wears on you.
It does. It does. I'm pretty doggone resilient, but the last couple of days, it started to get to me, especially with what's going on in Afghanistan. And I looked at women there that are just struggling just to be able to go to the market without being covered up. And I was like, the things that we take so for granted is what somebody else is praying that they will have an opportunity to do. Like, life is so incredibly precious. I think we need to just pause. We need to get back to basics and just what matters to us. And that's going to be different for each of us, but focus on what really matters and be the change in even if you can't be the change in your community, you can be the change in your household. For women, we set the tone in our home, I think more so than men. Even though, like, if you're married, I'm going to go off on a sidebar here, but if you're married to a guy that's a hot mess and he's verbally abusive, obviously that's going to set the tone. I'm talking about normal households. Women can set the tone.
Yeah.
We set it for our kids, definitely.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Yeah.
Sharon, I know people are going to want to reach out, get a copy of your book, and connect with you. Where's the best place for people to do that?
Oh, they can grab The Girl in the Garage, 3 Steps to Letting Go of Your Past, either on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com has it. Last time I was on Amazon, there's a lot of other small retailers that are carrying the book. But if you purchase the book and you take a picture of it and email it to hello@sharonhughes.net, I will send you a free course called Beyond the Book. And I think it's 5 videos where we just talk. We go deeper, and there's some worksheets, and I'll help you get that breakthrough and really discover who you are, what you're meant for, how amazing and incredible, and more than anything else, how valuable and loved you are.
If you're listening and you're looking at connecting with Sharon, make sure you check out the show notes. I'm going to have all of her links in there, as well as that email address she just shared. And Sharon, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story today.
Oh, thank you. Such a pleasure, Lucy. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creative.
Life is like a roller coaster.